This episode is going to be about model making. No, it's not, because that's always what we do. This episode is going to be about the painting.
Train spotting.
Fuck it, train spotting. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Could you imagine? We should do. Oh God, we could do like an extra episode, like a secret episode.
Meet up at a train station.
No, like a car park or something, a lay-by.
Oh, you know what we should do?
What?
What we should do is we should go to the Transport Museum and look at the trains.
We wouldn't be able to.
Yes, you can.
No, we've got our photographs under the desk saying, "Do not let these in."
Cross against the railway.
You know, if they find out you work for the railway, they'd be fucking pissed, wouldn't they? Hello and welcome back.
Thanks for joining us for another episode.
I am Malcolm Childs.
And I am James Skiffins, and we are just making conversation.
This is Season 2, where we discuss the ins and outs of the model making hobby that brings us joy and pain in equal measure.
From the greasy sprues and the gloss coats, and everything in between, we are going to be just making conversation. Remember, there are other podcasts you can listen to.
Plastic Model Mojo,
The Scale Model Podcast,
Plastic Posse Podcast,
On the Bench,
Model Geeks,
The Sprue Cutters Union.
Small Subjects.
Head to modelpodcast.com for all the links.
If you've enjoyed our podcast, consider leaving a review, as it promotes this podcast to more people to enjoy.
Showing your support to us is easy as making a cup of coffee. In fact, why not go over to buymeacoffee.com/JMC podcast and do just that. Your support will help go towards making the podcast and its content just a little bit better. In this episode, we'll be just making conversation about wargaming, miniatures and figures and the like. From Warhammer 40,000 to Star Wars to World War II with bolt action and thousands of troops on the table with Napoleonics.
Sometimes all you need can fit in one hand, and the joy comes from the eye of the detail. But do the disciplines carry over regardless of size? Yeah, so we had loads of messages recently. We need to go through them, don't we? Find out what people have been saying.
We certainly do. We've had messages on Buy Me a Coffee. We've had messages through Facebook. We've even had emails. We are so busy this week. So if you do send us a message, why don't you leave us your name so we can give you a shout out? But this time, if this is someone sent a message and said, "Thanks for all the hard work and keeping in the bloopers. Plus my shout out on Christmas edition at the start of the episode regarding my punctual Musaru live streams with pre-married name."
Who's that then?
Now we could link that and figure out who that was, but I can't remember.
Well, they didn't put their name in it on purpose, I'm sure.
Maybe that's what they did that for. But if you know who you are, we're giving you a shout out again.
Yay! There you go. You've been shouted out. Not shouted down. That's something different.
Oh no, absolutely.
Shouted out. What other messages do we get? Here we go. So, a message from Bakawi. He says, "Love the show, guys." Or she. We don't know.
No.
Could be he or she. They said, "Love the show, guys."
Yes, that's completely befuddled us. So the pronunciation of that was quite an interesting set of people that had to be talked to get that pronunciation correct.
Bakawi. Hello. Thank you for your contribution.
Next up was Gordon Sorensen.
Gordon.
Because you asked, in Canada we have 120 volt, 60 hertz with 2 or 3 prongs on the plug. And we do have speed bumps, but the ones in his small town were removable to make it easier to plough the snow in the winter.
Do they remove them when it snows then?
I guess so.
How would you know where they are?
Well, you do it before it snows.
Oh, you do it before you... Okay. So you... Okay.
Or either that, or you go along on where there's this bump in the snow, you dig it out, and then remove it and fill it back in.
There's one. There's one. Well, couldn't they automatically just plough them out? And then, no, that would be a nightmare, wouldn't it?
No, because the plough will get stuck under them and damage the plough, wouldn't it?
I guess so. I don't know how it works. I'm not a plough expert.
No.
I'm a lot of things.
I'm not a snow queen either, but hey.
Mark Ewing. He's my favourite Star Wars vehicle. Mark Ewing says, keep up the great work, guys. Thank you, Mark. Love your work too, mate, actually, as well. Big fan of your stuff. Keep it up.
So next up was Damien Rigby.
Damo. Yeah, Damo. I like Damo.
He says, well, I was hoping to put a bit of effort into oil paint rendering in the next couple of builds. But after listening to the podcast, I'm driving past the hobby shops, going to bottle shops, looking for old port rum. Well, good luck with that.
I wonder if old port rum would be good at weathering material. It might be. Someone try it. I'm not going to try it. I don't want to waste my rum, and I certainly don't want to waste my models. But someone must have a mule they can paint some rum on. Maybe it's maybe the next thing, next big thing. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
You heard it here. JWC has emailed. Hello, JWC. We're JMC. Hello, hi.
Oh.
He says, no, I am not a model railroader and will deny it under oath, through some will challenge it. You see, I was excommunicated from the Church of Model Railroading for not bowing to Luke Towan or paying homage to the trains themselves. I enjoy building stuff in the style of Martin Kovich in 1/87 scale. While there could be a train chasing its tail in my builds, it's not the focal point. Whatever do you mean, you may ask?
Oh, yeah, what do you mean?
Well, not mine, he says. This will give you an idea what some of us, gladly, model railroaders build. And he's put a link of a video of little tiny miniatures running around a street. Anyway, thank you guys for exhibiting some, but not total, restraint. The use of profanity, to me, it's like salt, he says. He says, I sobbed uncontrollably for days when the Scale Model Shared podcast vanished for some reason. I'm just very thankful you two came along and filled your hole. And filled their hole. That hole.
Would you like to do that again?
Nah, it's funny. Leave it in. Got to laugh. He says, have you ever considered borrowing, he says, in inverted commas, stash or cash, he says, inverted commas, segment? It was a classic. It was a classic. It was very cool.
It was.
Do you know what? We're going to find out. We're going to speak to the owners of that segment and see if we can do it.
Yep. But as we're doing this podcast, it's going out right now.
That's why we're distracted. So yeah, we will ask them.
Uh-huh.
See what they say. And it says, anyway, for you and your listeners, here's one to plant in the grey matter between your ears. For those that have any desire to add lighting, sound, etc. to a build, consider this is an excellent source. Quality stuff, and the tech info offered in their website is jaw-dropping. That is engineering.com, but it's not E-N-G, it's
Engineering.
Yeah, engineering. Engineering.com. Go have a look. And he says, lastly, while I'd be glad to support you financially, buy me a coffee, like Patreon, won't accept prepaid Visa cards, and being an untrusting sort, I won't use anything for online financial transactions. He says, keep up the good work, a loyal listener in Northwest Missouri, USA.
Yes.
Fantastic military museum up there.
And that was Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mac. If you can't give us any money, it doesn't matter.
No.
Just be a great fan. We love it. Thank you very much.
Just send us messages and get involved. Thanks, Mike. Next up is Mike Shelley. He says, thank you for your efforts in producing this podcast. Here is my attempt at answering questions that were raised in Season 2, Episode 2. 1. We have speed bumps in the US. 2. Power outlets in Canada, the US and Mexico are all identical. Thirdly, Pinocchio's nose problem is a variation on the Epimenides paradox, which you can find discussed in Wikipedia among other places. If Pinocchio did not specify when his nose would grow, this leaves him free to lie in the future while telling the truth now, and there is no problem. Once he turns into a real boy, I assume that his nose would begin growing. If he states that the nose would grow right now, then a paradox results and he likely turns into a cabbage or something. Although he could be mistaken. Feel free to ignore this message in its entirety, but enjoy the coffee.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
So he's put free to ignore the message at the end of the message.
Well, yeah, of course, that's what you would do, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's too late now. We've We've already not ignored it, but thank you very much.
But yeah, that made me chuckle something rotten when I read that. So thanks, Mike.
Brilliant. I still don't get it. Franco. Oh, Frankie Blokey. You know Frank.
Frank?
Yeah, Frank. Listening to New Year's resolutions episode while sticking more bits on the M47 from Tackham, thinking how fun it would be to have a party with you guys. Not the car keys, mind you. Have a cracking weekend, guys. Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Do you know, if we ever do like a live thing, like a model show or something, we should have a little fishbowl on the table for people's car keys.
With car keys in there.
Or something similar, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be funny.
Well, it'd be easier these days because they're all electric keys, aren't they? So you just go in the car park, press a button, the lights flash, and that's your night.
And then if the lights flash on something you don't approve of, you just bring the keys back.
Well, imagine you go up there and you got a Ferrari fob on it, right? And you go, oh, in tonight, and you go up there, you go, press the button as a bloody larder or something.
Nothing wrong with larders. I used to own one. My brand new larder that was outside my house got written off because someone drove into it.
Drove over it? Well, they probably didn't see it. It's so small.
Let's move on.
Jeff! Oh, I like Jeff. I think Jeff possibly is one of my top 10 listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, yeah, Jeff. And the reason is because I imagine Jeff is a cat. What film I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Jeff as a cat. Anyway, Jeff's not a cat. Jeff is a man from Buffalo in New York, and he says, meow. My name is Jeff Keenan, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. Inserts no joke. I started listening to all the podcasts right before the COVID hit, and I finally caught up with all the episodes and all the shows. Phew. It helps that I was training for a half marathon, and I get lots of windshield time at work. Oh, I see. Right. Oh, I'm glad that keep you going, keep you running.
Absolutely.
The podcast help keep me entertained and distracted on long running and driving days. I like to build Bandai Star Wars, at the same time? I like to build Bandai Star Wars 1/72 scale aircraft, especially helicopters, but I also built armour, figures, ships, and a couple of cars. My main reason for writing in my local club, IPMS Niagara Frontier, is having our annual show on Sunday, the 3rd of April. The doors open at 9 a.m. It's a great one-day show and usually has a good turnout. Please get the word out, as it seems interest doesn't seem as high due to COVID. Absolutely high.
Mm-hmm.
We also normally get a visit from our Canadian friends, but I'm not sure how open the borders will be by showtime. We're also looking for vendors and have tables left to sell. So that's IPMS Niagara Frontier and their show on Sunday, the 3rd of April. He also says, I only left Built Sideways out because they are the newest of podcasts and I haven't listened to any episodes yet. It's in the queue, but until then, I don't have their contact information. Forward this on to them. I haven't listened to Built Sideways.
No, that's a new one.
Wow. I'm writing that down because otherwise I will forget that. Cool. Oh, yeah, it comes straight up. Yeah, Built Sideways. Cool. I'll have a listen. Fantastic. Love it. I've been to Niagara Falls.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, it's always somewhere I wanted to go.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I went on the Canadian side I was on, and it was great. It's full of casinos. Loved it. If you do go, don't get the train on the Canadian side and then walk to Niagara Falls because it takes ages, and I was knackered and grumpy. Well, when we got there, it was lovely, but then I remembered that we had to walk back, and I was even more grumpy. So, anyway, holiday tips with Malcolm. He says, thanks for all the time and effort you put into the content creation and editing. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Getting a new episode notification is like a mini Christmas for me. Regards, Jeff the Cat. Thank you very much, Jeff.
There you go. It's nice that you have more than one Christmas every year. So our last message is from someone who says, loving the new season, chaps.
Well, we have got lots of positive emails. We haven't got any negative ones yet.
No.
Or you delete them like you're, sweeping the bad snow away from my feet as I enter the room. That's what I imagine you might be doing. You're in curling. You've been watching the Winter Olympics when they...
Yes.
That's what you're doing with all the negative comments.
Ah.
And I just ball in like a big stone on the ice and you're sweeping away all the shitty comments.
I've not got a broom in my hand and I've not got a dustpan either.
Dustpan. Sweep, 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 sweep. Oh dear.
There you go.
Okay, cool. There's the comments. Today
Yes.
my friend James, we are going to be talking about Wargames and Wargaming and painting of those little figures.
We certainly are.
Incredibly expensive plastic men.
Mm. Well,
And
you say men. They don't have to be just men.
no, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
No, they can. Yep.
This isn't
absolutely.
a political correct moment. It's just a fact that, it's not just men. There are other figures involved.
Okay. Tyranids. I don't know if they have male or female Tyranids.
I had Tyranids on my mind, definitely.
Did you? I had Tyranids for breakfast. There's lots of different war games. There's lots of different models. There's lots of different things going on with that kind of hobby. I'm sure scale modelers would be aware of all those things because there's probably a games workshop in your town.
Yep.
Or at least there was. They're called Warhammer now, aren't they? Changed their name.
Mm.
Yeah. Is there a games workshop near you?
I'm actually quite fortunate in that respect that I have 2 outlets that are in my local town. One is a very little one, but very well stocked. And the other one in the actual physical town centre itself, which is part of the model shop that I have talked about on numerous times.
Yeah.
However, the one thing I will say is that I would say out of the shop, a good 60% of the shop is dedicated to that part of their world.
Yeah.
As well as the middle of the shop, because they have tables that they use throughout the week and weekends doing gaming.
Wow. So you don't have an actual Games Workshop store?
No, not a branded one as such.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But they sell, this distributor sells Games Workshop stuff, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a couple of places that I've lived over my life, most of them have had Games Workshop shops in them. And that is where you go for your wargaming stuff. And I remember years and years and years ago, you could buy all sorts of different types of war games in a Games Workshop. It wasn't just their own products. You could buy anything from there, But now it's all Games Workshop products only. And they're very, very strict about those sort of things.
In true tradition, I've lied slightly in the fact that I have had some exposure to this when I was younger. That being, my brother was into wargaming for a little while. And he had lots of little Second World War pieces, but they were all metal, little metal tanks and half tracks and that sort of thing. Was used on the wargaming board, but it's not something I ever really played. Well, no, I've never played. Not really. It's a case of I've never played it.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, it is above space and Star Trek and all that sort of stuff in my interest spectrum. And when I say above, I mean I really haven't got a clue.
So when you say above, you mean below?
Yeah, it depends on which way you're standing up at the time.
So what you're saying is you don't know much about it, but do you have a kind of curious George about it? Are you curious about the wargaming and the figures and things like that?
The funny part is that I like the idea of the wargaming.
Okay, the actual game, yeah.
The actual game, physical game. There was a computer program way back when, which was a strategic sort of game where you had an army that would fight another part of the army.
Was it called Dawn of War?
No, it wasn't, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was called. It was a freebie you used to get on a Windows computer. And I'm going back well over 25 years or so. And it was literally basically a map where you would click and say, I want you to go there. I want you to do this.
Oh, was it Red Alert?
Might have been, I don't know.
Command and Conquer?
Might be Command and Conquer, actually.
Oh, right, okay.
And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I've spent hours playing with it. I like that idea, but the problem I have, if I'm totally honest, and this will sound totally ridiculous, but it's truthful. The problem with wargaming is there is a rule book, which requires someone to read it. And it's not really a bedtime story to be read to. So it's something I've got to do myself, and I'm too lazy. It's the honest truth. Too lazy, and really, I find it just scares the life out of me trying to retain all that information.
Okay. It's interesting because you think about the amount of things that you do know, say, about your dive bombers that you like, or your Corvettes. You could probably have a whole podcast just around those subjects and talk because you've got an interest in them.
Clearly, I've convinced you that I'm a knowledgeable person in those subjects. But all of that information is based on pictures. It's not based on reading facts. I am terrible at reading facts. It's part of my dyslexia, and I won't hide away from it. It's what it is. It's the same as I've got two amazing books just behind me from Adam Savage, giving lots of information about techniques and stuff. But the thought of opening the book and reading them, although there are pictures, scares me to death. I don't enjoy reading at all.
Right.
So that puts me off massively. If I'm honest, if I pulled me big boy pants on and pulled them up and got on with it, I'd probably do a lot of good for me to do that, to increase my confidence and all the rest of it. We're going down a completely different podcast route.
Yeah. What if you were going to be taught the game mano, face to face, and you didn't have to worry about a real book. You just had to remember that a 6 meant that if you rolled a 6, then you hit that person with a gun. You could learn the rules that way.
Yeah, if the enthusiasm for me to do it, then that would be the only way in which I would learn it, would be by someone having the patience to show me what I was doing and how I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am very much a visual and manually is how I learn.
Okay. Scale modelling instructions, they are usually a visual way of showing how things go. There's very little amount of words in them. The old days they used to, didn't they?
Yeah.
Find the carburetor and stick it on the thingy what's it. One, you need to know what a carburetor was, and also you need to know what the thingy what's it was to be able to find those parts. But now, of course, it's all visual. Does that give you any issues or difficulty?
No, it doesn't, because it's picture based. And the funny part about model making is that for me is that if I have an idea that I want to achieve, I generally will find a way where I can physically make it, and by making lots of things wrong, I find the right bit.
Okay.
Obviously, with wargaming and figures, there is an appeal. I'm not going to lie, there is an appeal. There are certainly some figures that I look at that are used as wargaming pieces. And they look cool. They look amazingly cool. Why aren't they bigger? If they were bigger, I'd buy them, but I would need a mortgage to buy them.
Yes.
But they would be so much cooler, bigger.
I'm with you. Where I'm coming from is I did all sorts of, still do, all sorts of model making, and including stuff to do with Wargames and Games Workshop and all that stuff, and fantasy things, and I like all that stuff. So it wasn't ever an issue. I remember going to a wargaming club when I was probably about 15 or something, or less than that. I was a nerdy 15-year-old smelly boy, and I'm terrible at maths. If there's a thing called maths dyslexia, I probably have it.
There is. Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, amazingly, I only found this out last year. Apparently, there is a form of dyslexia that is figure-based.
Oh, well, there you go. But I just find it baffling. I remember playing a game. It was a Games Workshop game, and it was called Epic. Little tiny things, and there was a type of vehicle that fired loads of rockets over a long distance. So it was artillery. And what you had to do, you had to roll 12 tiny dice. And every 5 and 6, you was a hit. So you pull them out, and then you had to roll them again. Add all the numbers up, and it had to be between 1 and 200 or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember my dad coming to pick me up, and I was rolling these dice. And I'd roll these dice, and I go, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6. And I pull them all out, roll them again, and I go, 6, 8, 12, 49. And my dad was just shocked because I was able to add up these things so quickly in my head without the use of a calculator, without complaining that I was doing maths. And I guess it's because I was enjoying it, and it was fun, and it meant that I get to shoot my tanks at this guy's troops, and that's why I was good at the maths.
You're right, and that is very similar to myself, in that a lot of the things in which I've learned throughout model making are things that I've watched other people or seen other people do and achieve, and thought, right, how can I do that?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, if I'm honest, it's down to, oh, that person made that out of resin, but I haven't got any resin because I haven't got money for resin. How can I make that in another form?
Mm-hmm.
But the same, like a window frame or a mattress. Mattress is a classic example. I've watched people make mattresses out of many different substances.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have any of that. So I found some modelling clay and I made it myself, or milliput is your best friend.
Yeah, so you've learned from others.
But it's all visually. And yeah, and I think that again with the mathematical side, as you say, I'm not great with maths either, funny enough.
Mm-hmm.
If I had managed to get hooked when I was younger, that probably would have helped me immensely at school.
Yeah.
But it was the same with computers.
Yeah.
Sitting there typing out your programs back in the day, and you get a book which was 1,000 pages, which was one program to move a very digitally impaired mouse from one side of the screen to the other.
Yeah, I remember them. Yeah.
And I'm just like, what? Why am I doing that? So I had no interest in computers. It haunts me to this day. I remember when my friend saying to me, you really need to get your head into computers. It's going to be a really big thing. And I said, oh, what a waste of space. It ain't going nowhere. You ain't seen my dad's Acorn computer. Trust me, there is no way in the world that thing is ever going to be anything big. What a fool. It's funny because I've been watching you this last year or so doing your bolt action figures, and I did say that this year I was going to get some.
Yeah, you did.
And I was going to give it a go, didn't I?
Yeah. So this is 156 scale, which is the Wargaming.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I like that.
For listeners, I am showing James my little tank. This is 156 scale, which is 28mm, which is basic Wargaming scale. And it's a lot of fun to paint up. I don't play bolt action, but I really love that scale. And I really like that the size, because it fits, as we said in the intro, it fits in your hand really nicely. It's really easy to paint, and it doesn't take much space on the shelf either. It's teeny weeny.
And just for the listeners, because obviously they can't see, the bottom of that tank is not painted. I just want to clarify that.
No, of course not. Why would you do that? A waste of paint.
Surely when you're wargaming and it gets knocked out, it goes on its side, doesn't it?
No. In bolt action, okay, what you do is you take off the turret, which is quite easy.
Mm-hmm.
You remove the turret, and then you put a bit of coloured smoke coming out the top there. All right? And, okay, yeah, I haven't painted inside either. But
I mean, those sort of things do interest me. But, I mean, it's the same with the Star Wars X-Wing miniatures and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
God, Star Wars, couldn't you just go down a rabbit hole with that? I mean, there's the X-Men First Edition, yes. There's the First Order, Galaxy Republic. Yes, I am reading from a list because I'm not knowledgeable.
There's plenty.
There's enormous amounts. I mean, and that's just one of many. It's endless, really, isn't it?
I suppose you just got to kind of pick one that really interests you. And I guess for me, Bolt Action does, because it's World War II, and I've got a lot of interest in World War II. The game Bolt Action actually follows historical accuracy as best as it can, but also mixes that with a gameplay.
Uh-huh.
So the different nations that you collect for your armies will have traits reflective in the game. Okay, so for instance, the Germans have the Tiger tanks, and it means that all the troops anywhere near or can see a Tiger tank have an extra fear. It means that they could break morale easier if you even have to have a Tiger tank on the board.
Uh-huh.
Which is reflective in how people felt about them. You know? And things like that, which is quite nice. It's not exact accuracy, but it gives you an idea of how these sort of battles perhaps were fought. Mm. The tanks and all the weapons are given the proper names, and they have similar statistics to how they were in real life. And I can't see that being a bad thing at all for interests in history and things.
You're talking about the same statistics and that sort of thing. So am I right in thinking it'd be a little bit like Top Trumps?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Top Trumps being a card game where you pull a card out and it has a picture of whatever it is and it gives you the statistics, and you have to challenge the person with what they've got in their hand as to who's got the best speed, best range, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. And it's all down to the roll of the dice as well.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So say you had a tiger tank and it can shoot another tank really well. Okay. So it gets a +5.
Okay.
And then you've got Stuart, as I've got here. Yeah. And that has a +1 to its shooting. And to knock a tank out, you've got to roll a 6. You've got to get 6. Okay, so if I get my D6 right now and I shoot with my tiger tank at your Stuart, and it's going to be a 6. So if I do 6 plus the 5, that is 11. So it means I do 11 points of damage to that Stuart. And then if the Stuart wants to shoot at the tank, it only has a +2. I roll the dice. It's a 6 again, honestly. It is 6.
You show me a 6.
That's a +2. That's 8. So that Stuart then does 8 points of damage to the tiger.
Right.
So that's how it works. So it's the statistics plus the dice. But it's kind of geeky and fun, and you get people shouting at the tables. And I remember someone telling me a story about when they were at the Avon show in the UK, towards Bristol, and they were saying that there was an argument happening because there was a dice that was cocked.
Cocked dice.
Do you know what cocked dice is?
Yes.
Okay. So for listeners who don't, cocked dice is a dice that is leaning up against something and it's not clear what number it's landed on. Okay? So it's not flat. It is cocked.
Right.
They hadn't decided at the beginning what a cocked dice meant, whether it was a re-roll or whether they just take the number that you can see or what. And there was a big argument happening because obviously this was like the last roll of the dice and ended with a cocked dice. And the guy watching it was like, this is just too much. The argument that was going on, it's supposed to be a hobby. They were getting incredibly heated and he wasn't enjoying the fact that they were so passionate about these things. It's a game. It's a sport, isn't it?
It's a competition.
It is. But what I really like about it, not hang the gameplay. It's the pieces. It's the sculpts. It's the techniques and the skill that people have painting these things. I don't know if you've ever seen Golden Demon competition before. No. So Golden Demon is a Games Workshop painting competition. Has been for years, and it's like the premiership, if you like, of painting competitions for Games Workshop things. It's the Olympics. It's the top of the top. If you win a Golden Demon Award, you're doing very, very well. And some of the stuff on there is just mind-blowingly clever. Really beautiful. And you have to have an amazing amount of creativity. You have to have an amazing ability. And you need to know how to take a photograph as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are skills and attributes that we need in scale modelling. I would argue.
No, I think you're right.
And if you go and have a look, put a show link up, if you go and have a look at Golden Demon stuff, and you imagine if those people who were putting that effort in there into those things would, building their own Sherman or building their AS-90s or F-14 Tomcats, can you imagine what the skill level would be like? Would you think they would be able to follow the instructions the same? Do you think they'd have the level of accuracy? Or do you think they were, kind of struggle because it didn't have?
I mean, I'm actually, as you're talking, I'm actually looking at the Golden Demon Awards, and I'm looking specifically right now a figure that is a knight on a horse. It's a gold award. It's Middle Earth. It's Warhammer Fest 2019, and it is the Hiring the Tool Warden of the Keys by Dean Luke, I think his name is. If I've mullered that name, I do apologise. But
we'll put a link in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I am, while I'm copying and pasting that link, I'm looking at it and thinking to myself, not only is it awesome, but there is so much discipline there that is carried over from my hobby. The way that the horse's tones, the way the fabric is painted so it shows it fluttering in the wind as he's running along. And the base itself, the base has got a little bit of stone there, the grass work. That's everything that I would do in the hobby that I do. But obviously bigger.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's just like a little diorama that he's got there on the base.
I don't know. Are you looking at that picture right now too?
I think I'm looking at the same thing you are. 5 o'clock shadow, night, horse.
Yeah. It's just an amazing art. It's just total art. I was looking previously before that at a slug. It was a silver award. It was a Warhammer Age of Sigmar. It's a Warhammer Fest 2019 again.
Is it a dude riding a slug, something, or centipede, isn't it, or something?
It's a slug that seems to be on. Yeah, there's a dude riding it.
Yeah. So, the amount of work and the amount of detail and the amount of time that must take is incredible. And you are completely right. Those techniques and everything, like the way they've done the swamp and the water and all that kind of stuff, would be perfectly portable across to our hobby because we're also making models of miniature scales. And I do wonder why there isn't more crossover than there is. I know of people who do both, like myself, like figures and painting and of tanks and aircraft as well. And our friend Luke,
yes.
He also, he's quite heavily into Warhammer, but he's also, he built 135th Warrior the other day, so and I think he benefits massively from that because he has both worlds. Both have different social circles, both have different ways of approaching and looking at their models, and he will only benefit from being a part of those two things. So I think it is a bad idea to kind of sway away from these kind of differences in hobbies, and dare I say it, from the railwayers as well. Yeah, I've gotten there because, as I've said, they have points to their hobby that we could all learn from.
Transportable knowledge between the disciplines is always something that is not necessarily as recognised as it should be. My first adventure into wargaming, I was sent to a show. I was sent, yes. Well, I was asked to go and I volunteered and said yes. And then the person said, it's a wargaming show, right? I was like, oh, is it? Oh, okay. But that was local to me. I've forgotten the name. I'm hoping you're going to...
Was it recent?
Yeah, it was the one you sent me on.
I sent you there.
Yeah.
What a bastard. Who would do that?
It was in the Lee Valley, but I can't think of the name of the show.
Oh, it was last year. Yes. Oh, it was called the Selwig.
Yes.
Southeast Wargamers of London or something like that, isn't it?
Yes. That was my first wargaming show, and I did look around. There were a lot of things there that, through ignorance more than anything else, didn't interest me, but there were a lot of things that did interest me.
Right.
And the one thing I found quite amazing, and I didn't expect it, was that right behind where we'd set up, because we were there doing a charity thing, right behind us was an area where people were obviously selling unwanted stuff.
Bring them by,
yeah. And I wandered over. There was a lot of stuff there. I wandered over thinking, I'll have a look, and ran back to the table to get my wallet because there was a figure there that was just like, awesome. The funny part was, not only was it awesome, but it went very quickly. So when I went back, it wasn't there.
Cool.
When I went back to the table and was talking to the guys, there was a gentleman there. So I explained what the figure was. He went, oh yeah, I had my eyes on that as well. So it was obviously it's very popular, maybe unusual, I don't know. But it was just something very different, and it was figure type personal thing on a base. Resin. In my mind, it was more the figures sort of thing. If you go to a figure show like you would do Lee Cliffs down south, that sort of piece to me. But it looked really cool. Me even walking around the main show itself, looking at the accessories you could buy for the tables. Amazing, really.
Well, did you see any of the terrain and the gaming tables that they were working on?
Yeah, terrain-wise, there was loads of terrain there for sale. There were loads of little boards with hedges and buildings, walls, and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things I found really interesting, there was a person there selling board games or boards for the game, and part of this board was a villa of about 3 different levels. And the way he explained it to me, whether I've understood it or not, is I don't know, but the way he explained it to me was basically Villa was the board game. That was it. And it was on 3 different levels. Gosh. And I'm just like, I don't understand that. I don't understand how that works. The way he was explaining it, first of all, it started with, well, this is what you do, blah, blah. And then very soon after the first sentence, it sounded a little bit like, blah, 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 blah. And by the end of what he was saying, it was like, because I just couldn't really get my head around it. But to me, it looked like, effectively, the only way I can describe it is, in Star Trek, they have a chessboard that has multi-levels.
They do.
I'm sorry, I've just upset all the chess players in the world, but I'm sure there is a multi-level chessboard in reality. But it just, I just couldn't get my head around it.
Basically, it's just like having a Monopoly board, but instead of going round, it goes up and down around stairs and things like that. And then you can, you have to check to see if your character's got like the sight and all that kind of thing when they're shooting each other, which I assume they will be doing in the villa.
Mm-hmm.
What else would you do?
Of course.
And I assume that all the stuff was really well painted, beautifully made.
Oh, this was beautiful stuff. I mean, it was phenomenal.
Do you think you could use it as a backdrop to one of your scale models, one of your dioramas?
Absolutely. If you wanted to get all fancy with your photography and stuff, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do that. I mean, if you remember at Telford 4 years ago-ish, I think it was, there was a diorama there of a desert scene, which was a box diorama which you looked through a little window. But it was about 3 foot, 4 foot deep. And in this diorama, as you went backwards, the scale of the objects changed. So you started at the front 1/35, then it went to 1/48, then it went to 1/72, then it went down to etc. etc. It was awesome, absolutely awesome.
Force perspective, and they use those kind of buildings and techniques today.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that probably, I don't know if you had that feeling when you were at the Wargaming show, but people put all this time and effort into their little figures and spend time making sure the eyes are straight and making sure they got the folds and of the fabric and make sure that the base is correct and perfect. And then don't put them behind lock and key in a display case. They put them on the table and start throwing dice at them.
Yeah.
And moving them around with their greasy fingers, and while they're eating a pasty. Could you imagine doing that with your stuff or my stuff? No, no, thank you. I would be getting the fly swat out. I'll say, get off. Get your massive bear paws off my pitot tubes.
I did notice, in fairness, there were a few games being played at that show, and there was a definite case of, that's my army, don't touch it.
Oh, right.
I can move my pieces, you can't. Now, that's on the board, which I can understand, because obviously if someone accidentally moves something, it could have a detrimental effect to the game. So I understand that.
Oh, yes. Yes, repercussions.
But, I did notice that. However, you're right. On this particular show, that was in the middle of the show. It was actually at a running track. And on the outside of the running track were the vendors and all that. And that was very much a case of touch what you like, not a problem. Again, for vendors, it was quite different.
Right.
Because at the model shows I've gone to, you can open a box, but they stand over you and go, well, shouldn't really open that.
No.
But there didn't seem to be that issue at the Wargaming.
Okay.
It seemed to be, that's fine, you can touch.
Do you think that is because, obviously, you have to be touching the things if you're going to play a game?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no, I would think so.
Or do you think because they are perhaps designed to be handled and possibly dropped and pushed around, and they don't have tiny, thin aerials on them? They don't have very thin parts that may fall off. They don't have plastic. They don't have canopies. They don't have delicate weathering bits that might fall off and things like that.
I think mainly, Malcolm, if I'm honest, I think it's because it's designed to be picked up and moved around that there is, I'm looking at this piece. I want to touch it. I want to see if there is a connection or it's tactile enough for me. But there's also a case of they're designed to be moved around. So why wouldn't I touch them? Yeah.
Do you think that then changes the culture of it as well? The culture of wargaming compared to scale modeling? Do you think there's a kind of an anger in scale modeling about people who kind of touch stuff? Or do you think it's the same with wargamers?
With the element of competition, I can imagine that would create a much more volatile atmosphere within the community. So it'd be very easy for an outsider to come in and go, I touched your thing, and that causes a problem. I know from my experience is there is that element, that negative element, if you like, but there must be an explosive element within the wargaming because it's competition based.
Yeah, I think you're right. Quite often in the war gaming competitions, because they are gaming pieces, they'll be shown on a nice base, but they'll also be still in their little bases for when they are going to be played with. So they are both. They are gaming tokens, if you like, but they are also little works of art as well. I think you can pick them up because it's like that, you know.
While we were looking at the golden demons, I was looking at that, thinking to myself, those pieces are not played with.
Once they've finished in the competition, they can be taken home and put back on the board. They're not part of a diorama; they're not glued in like that other one we saw, where it was glued into the resin base. So I wonder if there's different categories for that as well. You know, a wargaming piece rather than a diorama.
And another thing as well is a type of painting that I really would like to try and achieve at some point in my lifetime. Was another one I'll pick out is Slayer Sword winner and gold. Again, this is the Warhammer Fest 2019. And of course, I've got to choose something that's really hard to pronounce. Danakhold Trogoth or something like that, I guess.
You have to send me a link so I can see it.
Yeah, this is by Maxim Pinord, and it's a troll, effectively. It's a troll with mushrooms on its back.
Wow.
And the tones of the colours used are amazing. And in a way, I'm looking at this and thinking to myself, well, that's a bit cartoony, which it is sort of, maybe. And maybe it's the light, the way that its picture's been taken, but the way I can explain it better is if you can imagine a troll holding up a lantern in one hand, light from that lantern being reflected on his face, and that's the way it's painted. It just the way in which the paintwork is done is so very different and unusual to the modelling that I normally would do. I'm fascinated with it.
I think the difference is that with the modelling that you normally do, and let's just call it scale modelling. With the scale modelling that you do, you paint your object, and then you let the light that's bouncing off that object do the work for you. So you let the corners of it be reflecting back. You don't kind of overemphasize where the light will be bouncing and things like that. Let it do the thing with the light. These figures are really pushing the fact that it will be faded and it will be reflective, or the hands and the feet and the veins and things will be slightly see-through. And it's really kind of pushing that light effect. And also like all the shadows and things. The shadows are really pushed too. You know, it just seems, I guess they're pushing the contrast too. And I mean, yeah, we'll put the picture up on the show notes. It's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
There is another one that is, again, down to the paintwork, really, which is, if you go on to golden-demon.com, and you can look at the awards for the last however many years, you page down, you'll come to another one, which is a bronze winner from the 2019, again. And this is Danakhold Trogboss. This is by Chris Clayton. Your work on there, Chris, if you happen to be listening, this particular figure has two heads, and the shadows between the two heads are there. I'm assuming that's how it's painted and not a trick of photography, because I've seen that in real life on different figures, not Warhammer figures as such, but I like the idea of it because, well, that's not the right colour for that particular troll. Because it's your imagination. You can do what you like with it. You know, if you want to make the troll pink with yellow spots, then you crack on and do that. Generally speaking, people go, oh, it's a different take on it, yes. Whereas if you tried doing that with a British parachute trooper, yeah, you certainly get comments thrown your way. But yeah, so that sort of thing does intrigue me. And you probably know better than anybody that I don't tend to open a box and go, I'm going to build it like it should do in the instructions, and I'm going to paint it in the way it says on the instructions. I normally go off and find some different way in which I can build a kit of some description. I don't want a bulk standard B-17. It has to be a British B-17 that was used for different purposes.
The freedom is immense. The one we're looking at is like the centipede. Oh, the centipede is the wrong colour. That's not. It can be any colour I bloody well want. I love it. I absolutely love it. Don't forget as well, it's not just the painting, it's the sculpture thing.
Mm.
And the details in there. I mean, the troll on the right, our right, it's got 2 teeth missing.
Yep.
2 teeth that can cut in half. You know, you can see the inside of his teeth canal.
Yep.
For God's sake. It's beautiful. Absolutely. And that's my appeal. That's why I love these things, because they're just so fun and fascinating. Sometimes, after you've built your 3rd Stuart tank, you just want something that's got mushrooms on its back and is squeezing a millipede to death, you know? It's what you want.
Absolutely. That's just what you need on the Western Front, is squeezing them millipedes.
No, because it's completely devoid of anything real, anything in your own world, and it's nothing to do with anything, you know, to do with work or anything at all, and that's why it's such good escapism. Has it got like a frog on top of the mushroom that's on top of his head?
Yes, there is. The middle blue mushroom
has a frog on it. Now that's bloody brilliant. More frogs on mushrooms, I say. So yeah, Golden Demon, awesome. They run it every year. It's a very popular competition. If you're into Warhammer and wargaming in general, you're going to know. Please go and have a check out.
It's well worth it. And I'd even say if you're listening to this and going, which is probably unlikely, but if you're listening to this and thinking to yourself, what on earth are they talking about, all this Warhammer business? Yeah, go and check it out. It gives you a very good insight into the Warhammer world and how it could link into your hobby and how you make it right now. You know what I like? You know, I mean it with all love and good intention, but I probably will poke the bear at some point. So I'm going to ask the question: do you think that they are actual, like, proper models, or they're not really? Are they?
Are they proper models in that they're a model of a thing, or they're not proper models and not grown up enough?
Wow, it's not really model making, is it? Let's be honest.
I think you want to get shot, don't you? As much as model making as anything else. Using your plastic knowledge, you're using your creativity, you are following instructions when you're building the things, and all the other plastic scale modeling fun of building something up and creating something. It's not scale modeling in the fact that it has to be exactly right, because it's fun. It's a great fun hobby. And that's as far as it goes. I don't think that you can say it's not really modelling, because it is. I didn't explain that very well, did I?
So, okay, so being devil's advocate for a minute, what do you think? Why would there be a crossover? What would be the use of that?
Let's have a think. So the basis of these scale models are, you're putting on grass, and you're putting down mud, and you're putting down sand, and all that kind of thing. It's exactly the same in wargaming as well, with the little bases. You're doing the same thing. Yeah, there's lots of people out there on YouTube, for instance, who are just doing terrain videos, how to make realistic rocks, how to make realistic grass, and that can be perfectly transferred straight across from scale modelling and back again. The same, dare we say it, the R word, the railway layouts, that's the same thing. Crossovers, isn't it? Weathering as well. The wargaming world and their miniatures could certainly learn a little thing or two from the scale modelers and the railroaders. Put some dirt and muck on their stuff. And I think also it would be really nice to see someone painting up a 135th Sherman tank in a wargaming or Games Workshop sort of style, with bright edge highlighting and bright colours and really pushing out the rivets and all that kind of thing. It'd be really nice to see. So I think it'll benefit in that you just have more arrows in your quiver to be able to paint all sorts of different things. They get together and have chats and games. And any time you're really doing that with scale modelling is when you're actually building with somebody else, or you're going to a show. But of course, Wargames have that too. Yeah, I enjoy both. I just see something that looks cool and I want to make it. Same with tanks and aircraft. Looking at that Blackbird, the SR-71, I think it's really, really awesome. and I want to make it, so I will. And then I'm looking at this troll with a club that I've got, and I can't wait to finish painting him up. It's all the same sort of. It's cool stuff, and it's fun. It's just a fun hobby.
See, where we differ is obviously you've had submersion into that world,
Yeah.
whereas I haven't.
Mm.
It's just not one I'm familiar with.
Does it scare you?
No, it doesn't scare me. Now, this is I'll make the comment, but this is based on my interaction that I've had, a minor interaction I've had with the world of wargaming, and in my head, it makes me feel a little bit like they're train spotters, and they've got an anorak. Don't get me wrong, I mean it with no disrespect to anybody, because I've seen the figures. They're awesome, awesomely made, awesomely molded, awesomely painted. Most of them.
There is the subject of rules as well. So wargaming, if you're going to play the game, you need to know the rules, and that's where I would. That's where I was struck. And I'm triple, second, third guessing you would also.
I think it's not really about the anorak. I think it's more about the fact that I'd have to read a load of rules, and remember them.
Yeah.
And I I don't hide the fact I'm dyslexic. I have trouble reading. That certainly would be a massive factor towards here's a handbook, learn that, and then you can roll my dice. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like jogging.
Go on.
I know jogging would be really good for me. I'd lose a bit of weight and probably be much more healthier. But do I need to do it? No, I can't be asked. Thanks very much. Better still, shall I run for that bus or train? No, because there'll be another one. I'm not running.
No, you're not running. So is that how you see it? Is like an uphill battle? It's like a strenuous exercise to read a book.
It is a struggle, and it's very wearing. And taking in that sort of information, and then going somewhere and rolling a dice, and then trying to remember what I was doing and not doing, and it would just drive me nuts.
Okay.
If I'm honest, if I went down that road, which I'm not saying I would never, because never say never, but if I went down that road, I would have to make loads of notes.
Yeah.
So I would be that guy in his anorak at the table with his clipboard going, no, you're not following the rules there. I suppose that thought doesn't thrill me.
You don't have to be, just to enjoy the figures, you don't have to roll the dice. You don't have to play the games.
No.
That might interest you is the Bolt Action by Warlord Games.
So it's based on factual evidence, factual parts of what happened, not comments like if it was the French they'd be running the other way. Any of those sort of comments that are made by ignorant people.
No, I like you, me. No, they just try and replicate what actually is the case in certain vehicles and the way that the armaments worked and the way that the guns worked and that kind of thing. For instance, Germans had lots of machine guns and they were very good, very well precisioned built instruments. So they were very good. The machine guns were. That's reflected in the game. Gets people interested in what happened and everything else. Like the campaigns, for instance, you can buy the Market Garden set, and they'll have all the different vehicles from that conflict of that era within that set, and then there'll be lots of different campaigns that are set around different things and different characters within, say characters, but key players within that conflict. So the different generals and things like that. It's really cool. I mean, the models and everything that Warlord make are lovely. Very easy to put together, very easy to paint, and you can do pretty much what you like with them. You paint them sort of like green. There are Bolt Action players out there who would go to town with the right markings and the right colouring and everything else. They make sure that they get the right variant as well. Personally, I'm not bothered. If it looks like a Stuart, it smells like a Stuart, it's a Stuart, and that's enough. It's just a very, very glorified game piece, I suppose, or gaming token. If you're playing Monopoly, you don't care if your iron's facing the wrong way, do you? But it's nice to have. Obviously, it's nice to have that detail. So I think you might enjoy that.
But you still got to read it, haven't you? And generally speaking, and I'm being very generalised with the wargaming side of stuff. I mean, you were saying that certain pieces have to be painted in certain ways because of what they are. And like, for example, I know Luke said on numerous occasions that you tend to find that an army has a particular colour, and that the owner of that army likes to follow that through to all of his pieces, and that everything links into each other. And
there's a whole colour scheme for each different army, isn't there?
Which is no different to anything else, really. I can see the linkage, if you like.
Could you imagine, like if Russia decides to paint all their tanks red and all their troops were wearing red, how useful that would be hiding in a bush?
Well, if the bush was red, it would be very useful, but you don't find many red bushes.
It's their autumn season.
not even in Russia. But anyway, yes.
It's good fun.
I know you get a great deal of fun out of the bolt action, a great palette cleanser and all that. But every time I've gone into the shop and looked at them, I've gone, nah.
They are tiny. They don't take much space up. They are relatively easy to put together and relatively easy to paint up. You can go to town with the details and all that kind of stuff. This is one my wife painted for a bit of fun. She gave him a hefty German moustache, as you possibly.
It looks like Baldric.
No, and she really enjoyed painting those up. She didn't know what Tommy was until we did those. So, yeah, it's good fun. It's lots of fun. I think that's the main thing. It's a giggle. It's a game. It's a giggle.
Have a laugh, have a joke, and de-stress, etc., etc. So,
and both hobbies, scale modelling and wargaming, does that. So more power to them, I would say.
Definitely.
So I can't introduce you in a game of bolt action then.
No, not at all.
Not even if you were surrounded by people playing bolt action, and all you had to do all day was stand and do nothing.
Well, that's what I do for a living.
How about if I invited you to a wargaming evening? I shackled you and dragged you. That'd be a normal Saturday night. If I took you along to where a load of men were standing. That's Saturday night.
The bowl of keys. No, it's to be honest, it's a little bit like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to regret saying it, but it's a little bit like going to a monthly meet, where you, purely my imagination, so I apologise for all clubs that everybody goes to. In my mind, going to a model club and meeting up in a back room or a little hall doesn't thrill me. That's a similar sort of feeling.
Considering you go to the largest collection of nerds and geeks, scale modelling wise, at the Scale Model World, that's the biggest one, and you go to there all the time. I'm surprised that you can say that you would find it too geeky.
I know, but it's not. It's not so much geeky. I think it's like club nights. I remember having a conversation with someone, I forget who it was, I apologise, but I remember saying to someone about club nights, and they were saying, oh yeah, I love my club nights, blah, 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 blah. Oh, Mark Ewing, maybe, it might be.
Yeah, he shops up at Wonderland, doesn't he, Mark? I love Mark stuff, love it.
He's a member of Edinburgh and I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, am I? Anyway, get to the point. The point was, I remember saying, I can't imagine going for an evening with a bunch of people to make models and putting basically what's in my room in a little box and hoping to God it gets to where it got to go in one piece and the same coming back just to make a model. Whereas I can do that online and I've got everything I need right in front of me. It's not the same. I know it's not. And we've just lost half our listeners because they all go to clubs. But
no, they haven't. They've just turned the volume up. It's like, what? He said what?
I knew there was something I didn't like about you. And maybe, definitely partly ignorance. I can't lie, because I've not been to one.
I've never been to one, but they sound terrible.
No, just, do you know, I'll tell you where this comes from. I remember speaking to a local chapter, or near where I live, and I remember talking to this guy and saying to him, oh yeah, I'm very into models and blah, 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 blah. This was ages and ages ago. Oh, he said, you must come down to one of our nights. And I was like, oh, well, it's a little out of my way, but yeah, okay, maybe. And the guy went, oh, yeah, make sure you bring a model and some glue and we can all sit around and make your models. And I was just like, I know what will happen is I'll take a model with me and it'll get broken on the way or on the way back. What's the point of that?
Do you take models to shows?
And this is why I'm saying there's an element of ignorance and typical JMC, go back on what you just said. And also, bear in mind, let's be totally honest about it. Since I've had that conversation with that gentleman, I've found the joy of helping beneficiaries at where you build models and you go home with them. So things have changed in my world, but it's still not something in which, it's not something in which I want to try right now. I might try later. I don't know.
You have a wonderful world of things to discover. And I go to a local club, and I really enjoy going to the groups and seeing the guys and having a chat, find out what they're making. And yeah, things get broken, but so what? There's plastic. It's just glue it back together again. You know, you built it in the first place. That wouldn't stop me going because they get broken. But it would stop me going if I didn't enjoy the company. And I think that's because of the people there, and it's nice to see the people, and especially these days, it's nice to see them face to face again. And yeah, online is fine, but it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same as having that kind of, see someone in the real flesh.
The interaction isn't the same. I totally agree with you there. I from my own experience, I agree 100%. But it's the modelling side. It's not the me. I love meeting up with people. I love talking to people. I can talk you to death, easy peasy, as they're aware. Yes, so that side of it doesn't bother me. And even I am, surprisingly enough, I am a little shy, a little introvert in many ways, and I do struggle with initial interaction, shall we say.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very common, yep.
I'm not unusual in any shape or form to anybody else.
You are a little bit unusual looking. That helps.
I don't really mention that because I see that as an icebreaker.
Yeah. Are you wearing that for a bet?
Or as my colleague at work told me today, I should have one of those little squeaky toys.
Why?
Oh, they're gone off track completely. Maybe it's I just can't. Maybe I know that I'm a geek. I know that I should be wearing an anorak to do with model making, but I'm just not willing to accept it. I don't know.
Don't worry, because we've got a really good railway exhibition to go to, and you are in charge of timetabling.
Oh, no, I thought I was doing the announcements.
You have to hold your nose. The train arriving at platform 1.
You don't do that. That's not modern technology. We've got modern technology on the railway, you know.
So you press a button and it says, the train now arriving at platform 1.
No, I just got someone that lives locally that has a very Essex accent and struggles with particular words like platform 2.
They work in a train station.
I suppose we all get stuck in our ruts, don't we?
A comfortable rut, isn't it?
Yeah, I must expand myself.
Well, you're going to love this then, because the Model Officers Mess, the forum that you run, we're going to have the 48-hour builds soon, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. We are indeed, yeah.
And we have to choose what we're going to build for it.
We do, yes.
The rule is 1/48 scale things in 48 hours.
That's correct.
Now, that's not hard and fast rule. It doesn't have to be 48 scale. Just be nice if it was, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I was in Games Workshop the other day with my friend, and I saw this on the shelf.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's called a Tyrant, and it's from Age of Sigmar, which is one of the Games Workshop games. I thought that would be really cool, and I could probably paint that up in 48 hours. So that is going to be my 48-hour build. And the link between 48 is it costs 48 quid.
Ah, I see.
Didn't really. It cost 20 quid.
I thought you were going to do 48 figures.
No. No. So there is no link to 48, but it looks like a cool little figure, so I'm going to paint that. The monstrous veteran of the Moor tribes.
Oof.
My dude. It's loads of detail in it, so I can't wait to paint him up. So that'll be my entry to the 48-hour build.
Funny enough, I've made my choice for the 48-hour build today as well. So it's an amusing hobbies kit, and I'm going to let you pronounce it.
Oh my God, that's from our first episode.
That's the one, yeah.
Isn't it? We did that. We talked about the You used to say Vesaflug better than I could.
Vesaflug.
There you go, Vesaflug.
Vesaflug.
You said it with that London accent as well.
It is a Wesserflag 1003 German Vauxhall aircraft from World War II.
Oh, that's going to be cool.
Yeah, so I've made that choice today.
And how much photo etch are you going to try and stick on it?
Well, do you know what? The funny part is, I took it off from the shelf up there, and it was going to a different place, and I suddenly thought to myself, wait, now I remember when I opened the box how disappointed the lack of stuff that was in it. Perfect!
Well done. You can learn.
Yeah. Kit choice, you see. Not some Edward, I've got 16 different packs of PE to stick on in 48 hours.
What is your plan to do with it? Are you going to do it in like a 8-foot diorama or something though? what's your what's the catch? Where's all the time going to be spent?
Well, there is no catch. Yes, there will be a base involved at some point, I guess. Haven't really given that a great deal of thought, but there will be a base.
Okay.
But we've got, obviously, what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to spend half of the 48 hours building something and then going, and getting something else. So, yeah, I've gone with it. I don't get me wrong, I can get really crazy with that. The paint scheme options.
Yes. Yeah.
Could take me a month to do.
Take a picture of it or write a note that you're going to take a picture of it. Otherwise, we'll forget.
It's already there for that particular purpose.
Ah, right. Photograph. Brilliant. Well, I absolutely love it. We need to do a Moosaroo update, don't we?
We do.
Moosaroo Cup. The Moosaroo Cup. Let's talk about the Moosaroo Cup. Boom. Woohoo!
And that was that. The entry is now complete.
Oh.
We have gone completely and utterly off the wall.
We?
Well, I said the royal we, obviously. Gone off the wall a little bit. It's now where it is meant to be. We have a tip of the hat to the Moosaroo and to our Canadian colleagues and our Australian colleagues. And there is also a little tip to IPMS Hamilton in there as well.
So, are you going to put some pictures up, like full on?
Yep.
This is what I've got. This is what I'm doing. This is what I finished.
Yep. So this episode should go out on the 13th, I think it is, of February.
It should do.
Should do. That's not promising. The reason we're saying it should do is because this is actually the second time of recording, because we were recording it last Monday and unfortunately something happened with my father and I had to shoot off. So we've had to do it again. So Malcolm's going to be big and brave and he's hoping to get everything edited down for the 14th, which is the Monday, actually. It's actually Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Oh, well, love to everybody.
Oh.
Indeed.
Happy Valentine's Day. If you're listening to this on the 14th.
If you're not, I hope it was fine. But if we didn't get it out on time, it was because we were busy doing stuff for Valentine's.
What are you doing for Valentine's Day?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Absolutely nothing. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day.
Oh, what is she doing for Valentine's Day?
I don't know. Is the milkman coming around? I'm not sure. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I have a very simple theory that if I can't tell my wife I love her every day of the year, then I don't need a particular day.
Oh.
So.
See, Valentine's Day is my boyfriend and girlfriend anniversary with my wife, so I kind of have to celebrate it. Plus, I like chocolate, so works for me.
Well, yeah. Yeah, true.
Moosaroo Cup's done. Can't wait to see it. We talked about the things we're going to talk about. We've made jokes.
Yep.
We've laughed. We've cried. We've said some inappropriate stuff. Perfect. Oh, one thing I did want to say. I want to say a quick shout out to Gary. Gary told me a little story the other day about how he got told off for listening to our podcast.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Who told him off?
His wife.
Oh.
He was listening to us in bed. No, it's not what you think. He was listening to us in bed with his headphones on. I don't know which episode it was. His wife was asleep next to him. And he found one of your jokes so funny that he was vibrating in the bed and his wife woke up and told him off. So we make him laugh while he's in bed next to his wife. Which I'm not sure how to feel about that, but hey, if it makes someone happy, then it's all worth it, isn't it?
Well, as you've been listening to us and you've woken up, can you say hi and good morning from both of us?
Good morning. All three of us woken up together.
I'm sure that will defuse any problems you may be having right now. So, yeah. Good morning, Mrs. Gary.
I don't think they were having any marital difficulties. I think it was just the fact that she's woken up by his vibrations again. Just making conversation, causing vibrations in all the beds in the UK.
And anywhere else in the world.
Israel, Malta.
Yes. So one more shout out in which I want to make as well is actually a call out to some of our fans. And I would like to hear from as many club members from around the world. Especially like to hear from someone in the Malta area in a club, and ask for anyone that's in the Indonesia airwaves that might be listening, that may be in a club. Reach out to me, please.
Oh, all right. Any particular reason?
I would just like to have some communication from those particular areas. Maybe another area another time.
All right. Yeah, if you're listening for Indonesia or if you're listening in Malta, make yourself known. Say hello somehow, either on Facebook or on buymeacoffee.com.
So you just be aware if you do a message and you get a reply, it's generally from me.
But you can't tell because it just says from JMC. So I could say all sorts of balmy shit and then just blame it on you. Don't usually have to blame it on you though.
just don't mention bowls and keys and you'll be fine.
No. You know, it's funny when you were just talking about the clubs and everything. I thought you were going to say, I've got a big question for everyone out there who's in a club. Light the touch paper and say, answer me this. Clubs are shit, aren't they? Just to cite a bit of a reaction.
I'll save that for a post another time. Both scale modelling and miniature painting hobbies have many similarities. The tools, the paints, the techniques. Both can also learn from one another, with the weathering and diorama techniques being shared all the time.
Those skills developed on your grand dioramas can be applied to the smallest of size bases, and not to mention the gaming board.
You've been listening to Just Making Conversation with James Skiffins
and Malcolm Childs. Follow us on Facebook, where we post photos, updates, and other nonsense.
Let us know what you are just making and what your thoughts are on the conversation on this episode.
We have to thank our supporters who we dearly appreciate.
Please support us on
buymeacoffee.com.
Next time we'll be just making conversation about the art of realism. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Take care. Oh, I just typed James in. James in Maltese.
Okay.
Wanker.
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 Wanker.